What's going on YouTube? It's Lynn Matheson, aka the Canadian Cottage Girl, and today I'm joined by Ryan Carson from Carson Law. So today we're actually going to be talking about the 5 things that you need to know about condo developments. You're not going to want to miss this because real estate, definitely in Ontario, is limited in inventory. So condo developments or developments in general, builders, it's a hot topic right now because it's so important that we build more units to meet the demand. So you definitely have to be aware of the ins and outs of these condo development contracts if you want to buy one. So do not miss this video. Stay tuned right to the end.
So that's what you have to be careful of and try to make sure you're budgeting for, because that's where we've seen people have, charges of, $5, $10, even, $20,000+. Wow. Buyer beware and budget accordingly.
As always, make sure that you smash that like button down below and throw some love in the comment section below as well. And if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to the Canadian Real Estate channel for more amazing real estate investing content like this video. So Ryan, let's hop right into it.
Sure.
What are our top 5 things that everyone should know, and then we'll dive deep into the actual information.
Yeah, so the things that we always look at as our kind of main items for builder contract reviews, first off, is it a freehold, meaning a standalone house, or is it a condo? And whether it's a condo high-rise or could it be like a condo townhouse development? So we want to determine if it's freehold or condo. We want to look at what's their intended use of the property, because depending on how they're going to use it will have implications for the HST rebate. Got it. So that's important. We would look at essentially closing costs. So there'll be a section within the agreement that talks about, they either call them builder closing costs or adjustments. So we'd want to talk about those and make sure people realize these are going to be additionally charged to the purchase price, at closing. So just budgeting and financing awareness there. We would look at delay. What are their rights to give notice for delay? When do they have to hit those targets by the builder giving notice? And then how many times can they do it without compensation being required, etc. And then the last one, which we've done a whole separate video on already, is just really talking about, for the first time really ever, being aware that the deal does have builder conditions, and depending on the wording of those conditions, be aware that the builder could actually terminate the agreement. Right.
Yep, that's a huge point. So let's start from the top and just talk about your first point here and just break it down. You mentioned freehold versus condo. So what are the potential implications there, depending on which one we have?
Right. I would say the biggest difference with freehold versus condo is understanding that there's multiple closings. There's 2 with a condo closing. Right. Otherwise, in freehold, your closing date is the date you will actually be registered on title, have a mortgage to title if that's the case, and get your keys. Right. That's freehold house. However, if you're doing a condo closing, whether it's a condo townhouse or a condo high-rise, they have 2 closings. One is called occupancy, which would be the one that you'd see in the agreement itself. It would say occupancy date, whatever, March 30th, 2022. And then it would give some additional dates outlined by when they expect or anticipate to try to have final closing. So the difference between occupancy and final is occupancy is when you can occupy or take possession of the unit itself. So you can live in it, but you don't actually own the unit yet. The builder still maintains ownership. Got it. And so you won't have any of your financing available at that point to cover any of the costs of the occupancy closing. Okay. Because the mortgage is only going to give you financing for final closing, because that's when you do get transferred over to the deed and then because you own it, now your mortgage can be registered secured against the property.
Got it.
So that's important to realize because, well, number one, make sure you know if you have any financing coming from the mortgage that it's only going to be available to you at the second closing on a condo. And then number two, during that occupancy period, you have to pay an occupancy fee, which the industry, has kind of coined that to be rent.
Right.
So for a period of time, 3, 6, 9, 12 months, it kind of depends on the size of the development, you're paying this occupancy fee from occupancy closing to final closing.
Got it.
So that's a big difference that we try to make sure our clients are aware of if they come in and get it reviewed ahead of time. It's definitely something that if people don't get reviewed, if they're not experienced or have done their own reading and due diligence on it, it definitely can trip them up. Sometimes it can just be kind of annoying, but other times it can be actually quite problematic, for the person's financing and budgeting, right?
Absolutely. Well, these are all really important points, so make sure you understand the difference between the two. Now let's move on to the second point. So you mentioned some tax and HST implications here, so let's break that down.
Yeah, so builder deals, unlike resale, they don't have the exemption under the Excise Tax Act for HST purposes. So technically they are a transaction or commodity that is subject to HST. However, builders have created a scenario where they've instituted with the government a unique exception, where as long as it is being bought for personal use or the immediate use of a parent or child or spouse, the HST can all be included within the purchase price, as well as the HST rebates that exist with the federal government and provincial. So as long as it's personally being acquired for immediate use by yourself or your immediate family, brothers, sisters, that kind of thing, doesn't qualify, cousins, it's got to be children and parents or spouse. But as long as you personally live in it, then you'll get the HST rebate and it's all kind of included in the price.
Got it.
Right? However, if you're an investor or you're buying this speculation, then you need to take further, budgetary and financing considerations into play, because you will be charged the HST rebate, not HST, but the rebate, in addition to your purchase price on closing.
On closing,
is what you see most of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go over point 3.
Okay. So with point 3, we're talking about closing adjustments. So, or builder closing costs is kind of what people talk about in the industry. These are going to be things like property tax adjustments, utility hookups, the carry-on home warranty with the builder. But the big ones, the really big ones, those are usually a couple $1,000s, maybe max $5,000 to budget for. But the big ones are the possible increases to development charges or levies. So what is a development charge or levy? It's the cost the city or the region charge the builder to create the development and the individual units or houses, etc. Right? And so they've already estimated and factored those costs into the purchase price they're offering. But what you could get charged on extra over and above that purchase price is a increase to the levy or development charge from the date you sign the agreement to the date it closes. So that's what you have to be careful of and try to make sure you're budgeting for, because that's where we've seen people have charges of $5, $10, even $20,000+.
Wow.
So that's something to definitely take into consideration. Some builders will allow you through maybe the agents, like as you're negotiating the agreement, or through your lawyer to their lawyer, to cap, they call it capping the costs. So you could write and put a cap on the adjustments, the charges, the levies, those sorts of things. But others will not. You know, others are just, hey, my contract is the way it is. I'm not going to take on any more of that risk. You have to buyer beware and budget accordingly.
Right, and it sounds like you really have to budget accordingly, both for the HST implications as well as for these closing costs. You have to budget not only for the purchase price, and not only regular closing costs, but additional expenses and things that could adjust on closing that you might not know till the end, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, and that's the other big thing is, lots of times people would love for us to get them, you know, more advanced notice than just kind of the week before closing. But unfortunately, you know, the volume of you know, the number of deals out there by the builders and the lawyers and so forth, the reality just is, you know, there's only so many people working on these, but there's thousands of units, you know, every week or even maybe every day that this law firm for the builder are trying to close, right? So we're very seldom getting the final numbers any more than a week before closing, which obviously means it's hard to scramble within 1 week to, you know, adjust for budgetary or finance surprises. So I guess a real good tip is work with a mortgage broker or a representative at the bank who is very experienced with mortgages for builders, and can maybe build you in a bit of a cushion with maybe a unsecured or secured line of credit, you know, that you don't have to draw on unless it came to, right? But that could be a great tip to try to insulate a surprise. Absolutely. You know, that is difficult to foresee sometimes.
Yeah, especially on the week of closing.
Yeah, exactly. And even though you're aware of it, like even though we tell you or your lawyer tells you, hey, be aware of all this, you know, months or years out, the problem is we don't know what those numbers are going to be.
Absolutely.
You know, that's the part you just don't know, and it could just be a couple thousand, or it could be like 10 or 20,000, and it's like, well, does everybody have 10 or 20,000? Probably not, right? Without some planning.
Absolutely.
So that, I would say that's a great tip for sure.
Awesome. Well, let's go over tip number 4 that you need to know.
Yeah, so number 4 we talked about was just making sure you've got an understanding of, you know, what are the delayed closing rights and notices that the builder has and that you have as a buyer. So it's all enumerated and scripted under the Tarion home warranty legislation that exists in the province of Ontario. So it's all standard form. You can't alter it because it's dictated by the government itself, what the rights and regulations are for the builders, and then thus for you, the end consumer. It's all a section within the agreement of any builder, and basically they have to give you written notice. They have to tell you, hey, in writing, we're exercising our right to extend, and you need to get that notice within the prescribed period of time that's in the contract. And then if they've done that, if they've fulfilled the notice early enough, then they're going to get the extended period of time. So the notice is typically 90 days, so a 3-month window of written notice, which is, these changes happened several years ago, but that was increased from, I believe, 45 days. And now the delay, though, so the builders have to give you more written notice, but now the builders can actually delay longer. So more notice is now required, which is good, but the builders actually could delay longer now as well. So it's 2 periods of 120 days is what they could do. So you could have a full delay of 240 days with proper notice given and not be compensated, because it's all part of the terms of the contract and the legislation with Tarion. Now, if they don't give you notice on time, or they go past that allowable window, then yes, you could then be entitled to delayed closing compensation, which again is enumerated in the Tarion and the contract, and that would just be subject to how many days has it gone.
Makes sense. Okay, and our 5th and final tip when it comes to condo developments, we actually have a full video kind of breaking down a groundbreaking scenario. This has never happened before with a building development, so make sure you check out the full video where we break down this example. But 5th point is really just understand the builder's conditions as well.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's as you mentioned, never seen this before. Really, never seen a builder need to utilize their condition to fully terminate an agreement before, and that's, you know, the scenario you spoke about that we had a separate video on in detail.
Yep.
So definitely check that out for sure. It's very interesting. It's a very fluid situation. It's going to be very interesting to see, you know, if and anything comes out of it. You know, are there any changes the government might enact, you know, to help protect buyers, help protect builders? You know, is there going to be anything that's going to happen there? Because it's really just a really tough scenario for everybody, what's happened. But at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting. And the key thing is builders do have conditions, and builders could terminate if those conditions are not satisfactory to them. And they're usually very standard conditions of, you know, them being able to arrange financing that's acceptable to them, and being able to satisfactorily complete all the steps of their necessary development process, you know, with the region and the city and the province. So those are like their standard conditions, which you're going to find all builders are going to have. That's not going to really change. It's just that it's never been seen that they would want to cancel before.
Absolutely.
And that's what's happened.
Right, absolutely. And here's the interesting dynamic of it is that it's coming right off of a pandemic where it's been so unprecedented, and we've seen so many price changes everywhere, all across the board. Like even just working on a single family home, for example, you can only get a quote that lasts for maybe a week, maybe 30 days. Like it's very limited because material costs are changing so frequently. So it really is all just a fluid situation. It's all quite unprecedented. And it sounds like this could be something that just buyers need to be more aware of when they're entering into these condo agreements, and just really bridge their expectations in regards to some of these development projects. Because at the end of the day, we need more units here in Ontario. We don't have enough supply to meet the demand, and we definitely need builders to continue to build and provide more units and more living spaces for people. So it really is a very dynamic situation to break down, and I think it is very interesting just to hear the story. Again, check out the other video for the full breakdown of this scenario and what's happened. But even just the points as a buyer to really fully embrace and understand what you should expect and know about going into some of these contracts.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for tuning in here and joining us on the Canadian Real Estate Channel. So guys, make sure that you throw us some love in the comment section below. Let us know if you think that we've missed any important points that you would also add to our top 5, or maybe let us know what your favorite of the 5 is, just down in the comment section below. Also, smash that like button. It feeds the algorithm and really helps us out. Also, make sure that you subscribe to the Canadian Real Estate Channel if you have not already. That way you do not miss a single beat here on the channel. We have a ton of great content coming your way as the leaders here in Canadian real estate investing. So make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, and give us some love. We'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.